Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. So I'm still on the cruise ship and this is video number 2, just catching you up to speed with my adventures. And I've got my Roxy Journey Down the Garden Path pieces with me, so I did a little bit more stitching while I was sitting around. I added this little rabbit. Now the rabbit comes from some fabric that I picked up in Wellington. So the video you watched last was our journey from Brisbane to Wellington. That was 3-4 days. And now we've reached Wellington, and we've also the next day gone on to Picton and the next day gone on to Napier. So I thought I'd do another video and tell you my adventures in those 3 ports and just show you my little bunny, another critter for my garden, and the fabric and bits and pieces I picked up at 2 fabric shops. And there's another critter that I want to add into either this piece or the other one. So I thought we might as well get started. First of all, this little bunny was on some fabric that I purchased at the, let me get the names right, Stitchbird. And their website is stitchbird.co.nz. So there were 2 little fabric shops, quilting shops, stitchery, embroidery shops in the same area in Wellington. So we arrived at the port, we hopped in a cab and went around to these 2 little shops, and they're within walking distance. So it was really convenient, and I did a little bit of shopping. And the first shop I walked into was Stitchbird, and I picked up this fat quarter. Now, what caught my eye, of course, critters. There's these gorgeous little critters on it. Now, I looked at it before and I couldn't see the name of the fabric, and the gentleman wasn't real sure, or I didn't ask the question. I think that's sort of how it went. This bunny here has a real golden tone to him, where the squirrel has a silvery tone. So I thought I would cut out one of these critters, which I have. One little squirrel is now missing, and he has been stitched onto my champagne garden. So that piece I thought was going to be just a handy little critters. I love that duck egg blue, it's really pretty. They had a bolt of fabric, and then I just happened to look up and a lot of the fabrics were cut into fat quarters. So I grabbed the fat quarter. I have fussy cut out the little bunny, and then I just, using a olive thread I had with me, I just laid down a heap of lazy daisy stitches going up, going down, as if he's sitting in grass. Then I come back and put some beads through that are that soft green. Then I did a couple pistol stitches just with a cream thread I had, and with some gum nut yarn, I think it's wheat, I did some really loose French knots to sort of give him a little bunny tail. So that's my little guy. So he is in, plus of course I showed you in the last video I had hand stitched in this little fellow as well. So I've got 2 bunnies in my piece so far. Now I will add a squirrel, I'm thinking, fussy cut out into this one. And I like the squirrel because he's like a silvery tone, and I'm thinking of releasing this back a little bit here and tucking him in there. So that's the plan. There'll be another critter visiting my garden. Might leave the timber branch that he's on the cutout, because I can use that to tuck in behind that fabric so I don't lose too much of the actual squirrel. I'm going to lose his whiskers there. Might just rough cut around at the moment. No, I will go close to his face, and we might add whiskers. We could even, I had thought when Bunny was being stitched down in the other piece of getting a thread that's suited and do a little bit of stitching on top of the piece. But end up embellishing around his bottom and creating ground. Maybe I try that, embellishing on this guy. So the plan is to nestle him in there. So I'm just going to snip back that cheesecloth and fiddle around a little bit. So I might carry on chatting about my adventures. As I said, we pulled into Wellington. We jumped in a cab and headed off to these two particular shops that I'd found online. I'd mentioned them when I was back in Australia, that were two, and a couple lovely ladies reached out to me and suggested them as somewhere to go and check. So picked up a few bits and bobs there, and they're both lovely. The owners were there and they're just lovely. Very, very accommodating. Now let me take some photos. So I will put at the end of the video some photos of their shops. So let me just grab a pin. There's one. I'm just going to pin him there. I like how he's nestled there at the end. Some needle and thread. So what did we do then? Oh, my husband. I tell you, these boys, when we arrived, I jumped out of the cab, and needless to say, I was a little bit panicky because you're going away from where you're really meant to be traveling, and it took a bit to get a cab, and will we get a cab back quickly? Will we miss the boat? You know, all those things happen in your brain when you're traveling. But anyway, it all went to plan. I'm actually got quite a thick needle there. I'm going to grab a thinner needle because I'm using fabric that is not, you know, real heavy. I'm just going to grab my needle that is for beading. It's really fine, so therefore I'm not puncturing the fabric too much. My hole will be very small, less chance of fraying the fabric because I have cut quite close to his little face. So anyway, I'm going to overcast stitch him down. Yeah, as I was going to say, we jump out of the cab and I said to my husband, can you grab us a coffee? I noticed one at the end of this arcade. Grab a coffee for me because I didn't get time to get one on the boat in the morning. Anyway, so off he toddles. I go into Stitchbird, have a little shop, take some photos. He arrives with my cappuccino and himself a nice cold drink. And then we walk through the arcade a little and into Busy Bee Quilt Shop, which was absolutely chockers full of fabrics. And the second room, I could see huge big quilting machines. So very much a quilt specialist. Beautiful quilts hanging around the top of the store as well. Massive range of threads. Oh, just, yeah, really worth the trip to both of them. They were similar but different. One looked like it had been there quite some time, and the other one would look fairly new. A lot of the newer fabrics that are on the market, but both worth the trip. And as I said, lovely owners. The hubby, in the meantime, after we finished the little shop, we walked down we were directed to a subway down the road that would have a taxi rank. Of course, there's no taxis, so I decided to jump on the phone, book one, and within a few minutes one turned up, took us back to where we had to meet the buses. So that was all good. We're on the bus and they mentioned that we needed our cruise plastic card and also our driver's license, just so that the port authorities would check us while we're on the bus, allow us then to enter the port and be on our way. Hubby's like, my cruise card, where's my cruise card? So you can imagine, here we go. So what we think's happened is when he bought the coffee, he had a feeling that it was in his pocket, not his wallet. And when he's probably pulled the phone out to get his credit card to buy the drinks, the cruise card is probably flipped out because it was just in his pocket. So prior to getting to that stage of sheer panic, we decided to have a look at a pinball parlour, because, you know, you do something for the girl, you better do something for the boy. So we found that there was, in town where the bus let us off, ye old pinball parlour. So he went in there and had a play of some machines for a couple hours, and I then went walking around that vicinity and found a few different shops, bought myself a new backpack. My backpack, oh goodness, you know, when you get the bag out of the cupboard to go on holiday and you'd forgotten that the zip's broken and there was a hole and the seams again. Yeah, well, that's my backpack. So I managed to sort of get to the boat with the old backpack because it was too late to find something in Brisbane, and I found myself a new backpack in New Zealand. So it worked out really well. Near the pinball place was heaps of those camping type shops. So I got myself a new backpack. It was really reasonably priced. It's very lightweight because it's designed for those folks that like to hike. So that's a bit of a bonus. And now I've got a backpack. So the old one that's with us may come in handy because I've done a little bit of shopping and I may need something to carry my new purchases off the ship when we get back to Brisbane. So that was our adventures there, and dead set, we're getting back to the boat, and every checkpoint I don't have my card. It was quite funny actually, because, you know, usually it's me losing these things, it's never the husband. So we got right in, and of course, yes, we've lost the card. Come over here, sir. Come over this way, sir. Round to the back of here, sir. So anyway, it wasn't an issue. They just print you out a new card, and because I'd taken our passports, we had our, you know, driver's licenses with us, it was never an issue. And on his phone he had the ticket that they send you to your phones now. It's also electronic, so it's never an issue. But yeah, new card needed. So that was our Wellington adventure. We then back on the ship and back on our way. We saw a hypnotist that night on the stage as the stage show. That was pretty funny. You know, when there's one person that walks into a room and you just, for some reason, your eyes go to that person. And I leant over to my husband. I said, that guy walking down the centre, because we're like 3 levels up in the air. This young lad comes walking in, and it was St. Patrick's Day. So he had a bright green shirt on and bright red boxer shorts, or not boxer shorts, like stubbies or cargo shorts, but they were red. So he just stood out in the crowd, and he was only probably maybe 26. I think they were on their honeymoon, the young lady with him, I think was his new bride. So anyway, he's walking through this big theatre, and I spotted him straight away because, you know, he stood out amongst the age group for a start. And I said to my husband, I bet he goes up on stage. Dead set, he's up on stage. He took about 15 up on stage, hypnotized them, but probably about 6 didn't seem to go under. So they got the little tap on the shoulder and say, come on, back to your seat. So he was left with about 8 and then did the performance. And this young fella turned out to be the star of the show, him in his red pants. So it was pretty funny. I'm getting sidetracked now on additional stories that I wasn't going to mention because there's never enough time. So the hypnotist was really good. Now what did we do next? Oh, the next day we pulled into the port of Picton, and we had booked a trip to a pearl farm. It was fantastic. They put us on a water taxi. There was probably only about 10 of us. Out the harbour we go to oh, I can't remember the name of the exact bay, but anyway, it was an hour, well, 50 minutes on this little water taxi to get out there. We then were met by the owners of the farm, a husband and wife team, and a couple of their workers. We went up to their house, sat in their lounge room and had a cup of tea, cup of coffee and some lovely baked goods while we had a little video to watch about how they came to be where they'll be. They were pearl deep sea divers in California, and the wife, Antonio, was a New Zealand girl with a similar sort of background. But the husband had, I think he was probably about 15 years older again, but he'd had a lot of experience diving for abalone in California and all sorts. Like, if you're wondering who owns a pearl farm, they do. They then they met somewhere in America diving, and then went on a holiday to New Zealand and came across this pearl farm that had been going for about 30 odd years, and decided to buy it. So the perfect people to buy a pearl farm. They've now taken it to the next level, where they are creating their own abalone. So they're farming, spawning the abalone, creating the abalone, little fellas, and then rearing them up for 4 years. And at some stage in there, they implant a little nodule, like a little resin thingy, that the abalone then go, oh, there's something bumping me in my shell, I better coat it with this mother of pearl to make a pearl. And then they come along 4 years later, and the little lump is removed. Hopefully it's a nice pearl, like diamonds. There's all different grades, so very, very good, right through to, you know, just okay. They've hired a local jewelry maker. He turns it into jewelry. Yes, you're probably wondering, did Corrine purchase any pearls? No, she didn't. It just wasn't my style. Beautiful, but I looked and looked and looked, thinking there must be something here, but no, I just didn't see anything I really liked. So, but I did see a bumblebee. I'll get back to him. I'll put that little video at the end, because my husband took a video of this bumblebee. They are huge. The bumblebee was the size of my thumbnail. I've never seen anything so big. They're not in Australia. We've got the common, you know, bee, and then a little Australian native bee who's just very small. But this bumblebee, if you were going to sketch and stitch it with big yellow stripes, that's the boy. So my husband managed to get a great little video of this little bee. And the ladies' garden, because they're so isolated, they are really, you know, down to growing everything themselves. And her garden was just beautiful. Not only was it flowers, but it was vegetables, and there was a greenhouse. And I was walking through it down to the pearl shed, where they've got all the little abalone growing, and it was like walking down the garden path. I tell you, it was just like what we're doing. Following a path down past the compost heap, down past the greenhouse, down past the vegetables, and there was flowers scattered along the path as we go, and little streams where the ocean tidal streams meet the mountain streams. The scenery, the one side of their farm looked like the rolling hills of Scotland. Like, it was just beautiful. I could have picked up everything and moved there. It was just, oh, so pretty. So we had a lovely little chat about how they do it. Yeah, so then the taxi ride back in this water taxi, the guy, we sort of got him chatting a bit. He was a bit of a, what would you say, a salty old dog, but a young fella version. So it was hilarious. Once we got him talking, he just didn't shut up, basically. So I yelled out in the crowd, I said, do you reckon you could show us a penguin or something, you know, a dolphin? I think it was a dolphin, I said first. And he goes, oh yeah, we have a little dolphin here that's only about 4 foot, but they're pretty quiet at this time of the year. And then I thought, oh, I've got his attention. Can you show us a penguin? Yes, I know where there's some penguins. I'm like, He goes, do you want to see a seal? Everyone's like, yes. So he's sort of on his way back, he detoured into this little cove where there was a large salmon farm. And the seals consider salmon farms, like we do consider the buffet on a cruise ship. It is open slather, and these seals, they cause so much mischief as they try and break into these salmon farm fences. They're like big floating fences with different ponds of different size salmon in them. We could see them jumping And yeah, so these seals were sitting on the side of the rails where all this netting was to stop them getting in, and they were like just opportunists waiting. And it was quite funny because as the little boat got closer to them, this huge seal, I actually think I took a photo. My husband did most of the photos, but this huge seal, he flips over on his back, if to say, I'm not doing anything. There he is. That's him there. So that's a platform that the workers walk around, and then there's this netting going up to stop these cheeky buggers getting in. So he's sitting right on the edge of that platform, and he's flipped over. Look at that face. Can you see it? Bring it up to the camera. His cheeky little face. And the next photo, if I had taken it, he actually rolls onto his back with his flippers in the air, if to say, I'm not doing anything. I'm just sunning myself. He was so cute. Like, look at that face. I don't know if you can see it, guys, but he was so nice. Oh, there's the photo of the bee. See the bee? Look at the size of it. But I'll put a little video at the end of this video that my husband did, because it was beautiful. What else? Oh, remember in the last video I said that the dog made of towels, my husband picked it up and the head fell off, and I was so Scotty with him that I didn't get a photo of it. So I asked our maitre d' in the room to remake him, and he did. And then the next day we come back and we've got an elephant. Look at that. We've got an elephant in the room. So cool. What else have I got in here in the way of photos to show you? The pearl farm. That's probably can't see it, but see those hills? It's like rolling hills. It just, I said to my husband, it feels like we're in Scotland. It was so beautiful. These are all little houses. They've got, I think, 3 where you can go and stay as a tourist. The actual pearls are down in one of those sheds where you can, yeah, that's walking up from the jetty to their house, which is up this way. But just, oh, it's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And they had sheep and, you know, turn it on for the tourists. We were all very suitably impressed. Now, I'm just looking at my little squirrel here, and I'm wondering, I'm going to grab my cottons and see if I've got a thread that matches that little guy, because he's all stitched down now. And I just don't know if I've got a steely green with me. Oh, I might have something. This guy here. That guy there might do it. Yeah, that'll do it. Beaut. I might even revisit the original rabbit and see if I can get a few little stitches in. I might work all the dark areas. So do the inside of his tail. But I probably only need 1 thread. So what else did we do at Picton? Yeah, we saw the seals. As we got closer back to the harbour of Picton, we saw some little blue penguins in the water. We only saw their heads, and they were sort of in a little cluster cruising past. But as we got closer, they were like, nah, ducked under. We hung around for a little bit. They popped their heads back up to get air, and then saw us still sitting there and said, no, we're out of here. So that was the penguins. Picton itself, beautiful seaside village, as you would imagine. Just gorgeous. Had a walk around the streets, and then hopped on the bus, made our way back. And then today we've pulled into the port of Napier. Lovely little town, famous for being Art Deco. So how the story goes, in the 30s, the town was pretty much flattened, the center of the town where we were, by an earthquake. So a lot of the buildings were rebuilt in the style at the time, which was Art Deco. So they really turned on the show for us, because anyone who pretty much owned a vintage car from the 1930s, well, there were ones from the 40s as well, were either at the port as a bit of an exhibition, when we got off the ship and when we left, or they were just cruising the streets. So, and all through their mall, their main street, they had the cars out, and oh, they were just gorgeous, just beautiful. So that was a bit of a treat to see all those old vintage cars from the 1930s. What else did we do in Picton? Napier. We pretty much just walked all of the main street, and I really wanted to get a couple gifts. The two ladies that are looking after Bandit, they would not take anything in the way of payment for the, you know, looking after my Bandit. And I thought, oh, I'll get them something, you know, and I had in mind a beautiful leather handbag each. So I did look at some in Wellington, but nothing caught my eye. There was not a lot of leather to pick from, but we had limited time, sorry, not unlimited, limited time. So when we got to Napier, and because we had no tours planned, we just were walking the streets for the day, I'd Googled a couple leather shops and I found two beautiful boutiques, and you won't read about it. I bought Australian leather bags in New Zealand, but they're made from Australian leather. Like you just can't write it, can you? Go all the way to New Zealand to buy an Australian product. But anyway, they're beautiful. The one bag for the one lady, well, to be honest, I'm not 100% sure who will like which one, but I sort of felt like they both could be either of the ladies. The one lady is my age, in her early 50s, and the other lady, they like share the house together. They're she would be probably early 60s, so very different tastes, but I think I've got it right. So the first bag I picked up could convert into a backpack as well, and I think the lady in the 50s will like it. Like, she's a vet, so, and she's always wearing jeans and casual wear, because that's sort of, you know, what she wears all day. She's a surgeon of veterinary, and I think it'll be right up her alley. And the other lady, she's a part-time nurse, so she's got that real soft, gentle nature about her, and I think the other bag sort of feels like more her. But the first leather bag is dark blue, a bit of red, and you flip it over and there's a patch of purple and a patch of ochre, so you could nearly wear it two ways, and then pull the straps and you've got a backpack. So I really, really liked it. If they hate it, I like it. I'll find them another bag. But the second bag is that dark classic leather color, and it's like all plaited, and there's a drawstring, so you can open it up and put your hands into like this sack, and then draw it closed, and then those two straps become the handles over your shoulder. And I think it's just gorgeous. So, and it's quite a dark chocolatey leather, so I think she will like it. But be interesting, personal, very personal. Buying handbags for people can be quite tricky, but I looked at so many. There's so many beautiful bags, so I was pleased that I got that sorted. There was a fabric shop in Napier, and it's about 11 kilometers from where we were, so we had a quick cold drink and at a little bakery, and then the taxi rank was just outside, so I called for a taxi, and we stood for 20 minutes, still no taxi. And we did the math on it. By the time we got there, by the time we had a look around the shop and then find a taxi to come back, the ship was leaving at 3 o'clock, and we just thought, oh, if they're slow to get us now, they're going to be, potentially, we could miss the ship. And, you know, I know it's a fabric store, but is it worth walking to the next port? I don't think so. So we decided to leave that, and we finished walking the town, sort of ended up back where we were let off at the information area, and hopped on one of the coaches back to the ship, and all those 1930s cars were all lined up, beautiful, giving us the royal salute as we were leaving. So it was really, really good. This is working really well, this. I don't know if you can see. You see all the little, it's only one thread, so it's the tiniest stitches. But I think I could actually do quite a lot of embroidery on this little guy, which I'm really liking the way that's coming up. It's making his tail look quite fluffy. I might even be able to get one of the other colors if there was a lighter gray. I need to keep an eye on the time too, because yeah, that gray there, might get it out. That gray could be stitches coming into the top of this just to soften. It's going to take ages to do this, but I've got plenty of time. Let me look at the time. I put the stopwatch on. I was going to film earlier in the day, but then we just got sidetracked and then just had to get going, and then we got back and I thought, oh, I'll film when I get back to the boat. But my husband decided he would have a nap, and I thought, oh, I could probably do it, but then he started snoring. He started snoring, and I'm like, oh, what if you guys can hear him snoring? So I thought, better not. So he had a bit of a nap. I went down, got myself a coffee and a couple slices of cake. There may or may not have been a slice of pizza in there, allegedly, may have. I'm not going to commit to anything. And then I come back and I watched one of Rachel's videos, and then I watched, oh, who was I watching? Someone who's doing the stitchery. Can't remember now. Trying to keep up with it all. And then hubby woke and I said, hey, how about you ping off, go get yourself an ice cream, go play some bingo. Not that he plays bingo, but amuse yourself. I'm going to film a video because I've got 3 days worth of activities in my head, and I really wanted to play with these little squirrels and the rabbit. So I said, just toddle off, let me do this video, and I'll find you in an hour, because otherwise tomorrow we pull in another port and we're off to see Thermal Springs, a kiwi plantation, and have a big lunch at a homestead. It's a hungy, so it's going to be an action-packed day. Then I think Auckland is after that, and we're off to see Hobbitville, where they filmed the Hobbit movie, which is another 7-day tour, 7-hour tour. So I'll probably refilm then a couple days time and make a 3rd video, and that'll give me time to fiddle around with this squirrel too. Well, maybe. So you can see on the back where I've been going there with those tiny little itty bitty stitches. Don't lose that thread. So how far are we in? About 34-ish minutes. I might show you my purchases next, just in case I run out of time from the 2 little shops. But I think you get the general gist of a little squirrel. I'm just going to stitch, you can see on the light shining there, right around his bottom. Then I'm going to come across the top of his tail with this thread, I think, just to make his tail look a little interesting. And I'll do some whiskers on him. Might do his eye inside, I don't know. Just keep going until I don't go anymore. And that will sit up there. That, yeah, he'll look good tucked in at the end of the piece. All right, so let's just put that aside for a minute. That's good, I've got some homework. I am working on my peacock, that is a series separate, and I've worked out the feathers, but I will film that little bit before I get too far ahead of myself, because I've worked out how I'm going to do all those feathers on the peacock, and I'm sort of ready just to sit and stitch. and I really want to show you guys what the plan is before I'm done and suddenly you're seeing it all finished. So, and it'll be sort of my last chance to refine the piece, if you know what I mean. All right, let's have a look at Stitchbird. So I bought some fabric. Now Stitchbird, that's the details of the little business and their website. So I'll put a photograph of this card at the end of the video. Now, they had some beautiful Japanese fabrics. I actually have seen this one before and I've just never picked it up. So I was pretty keen to grab myself some of this beautiful fabric. It's got like a little textual little design in it. I don't know if the camera's picking that up. So 1/2 meter of that. I really want to do a Japanese fabric styled, camphor styled quilt for myself. I've been collecting fabrics for ages, just little bits, and I sort of want to borrow stitch them all together and yeah, make myself a quilt. Now, having said that, I was in a shop in Napier today called Trade Aid. They were in Wellington, and the lady said there's like 60 odd shops around, and it's a lot of items from Bangladesh and India and Nepal, Bali, Indonesia, all those types of products. And the one today had a camphor quilt in it. Stunning. Oh my goodness, it was reds and whites and creams, and then if you flipped it over it was purples and pinks, and with the white stitching through it. I was so close to buying it. Oh, I was so close to buying it. It's just not quite the right colors for my decor. That was number one. It was $250, which is pretty reasonable for a handmade quilt, and there were 7 layers of fabrics in it, and you could sort of see the shadowing of other fabrics deep in it. So I was like, oh, and you know what stopped me is I've only got so much room in suitcases. For goodness sakes, girl, put the camphor quilt down. Like, I'm holding it in my arms, you can imagine it. Hubby's sitting outside on a planter box patiently waiting, and I've looked at him, he's looked at me with a quilt in my arms, and he's just shaking his head after going, oh my goodness, girl, you're a lunatic. So I put it back because, then the main reason again is I've been collecting these Japanese fabrics, these linens, these cottons, and their blues and the wheat color, and I really want to have a go at making my own Boro styled quilt. So I walked away. So that's the story with the camphor quilt. This fabric, now, it is a Riley Blake design. It is called Art Journal. Look at those flowers. Look at the flowers on this. Oh goodness. Art Journal. It is gorgeous, and it's just full of butterflies and some beetles. And I thought, how gorgeous that I potentially could take one of these and add it to my garden. I don't know. They'd probably look at the bee. Just beautiful. I don't know. I just loved it. I've admired it for some time, and there was a roll of it. So I grabbed some of that. I think it was only 1/2 meter of that. And I grabbed some of this. It's linen. Chickadee is the brand. Now, there's a name on here. Oh, what a beautiful morning. Oh, what a beautiful day. Yeah, that's all that's there. It is gorgeous. Look at that. It's watercolor, painted flowers. Look at the little birds. And I have ideas of embroidering it all. Just beautiful. Just even as a cushion. Just, oh. And on linen too. So it's got the strength to handle a big embroidery. So that caught my eye, and I bought a nice piece of that. Like, it's just, I like this style of watercolor flowers too. When I do watercolor painting, that's about what I do. Like, just smear a bit of paint around and it sort of looks like this. Watercolor's very forgiving when it comes to flowers. So that's what I bought in the way of flowers. Then I've forgotten what I've all got, so I open it up. Ah, yes. Oh, Sue Spargo threads. They're not easy to find in Brisbane. There's heaps online, like I could have ordered them ages ago, but I've never really seen them close up, and I love her work. I'm patiently waiting for a recognised teacher to come to Brisbane and offer a course in how to do Sue Spargo styled embroidery. So I really wanted to have a close look at the cottons. These are the 8 ply. They're very similar to some other ones that I've got, so I sort of feel more comfortable with the threads I also own as well. The only thing I'll say is these have a bit of a sheen about them. They're beautiful, real pearly sort of look about them. So they had a small selection of those. I found that zigzag braid. Isn't that gorgeous? Doesn't that suit my projects? Like, I'm very much in those colors. So there was a little bit left on the roll, so $2 a meter, had to grab that. I think it was $2 a meter. And then I found this. Look at that tape measure. I've got a vintage one, which I think I pulled out in a recent video to cut a piece off and add to one of my vintage sewing techniques that I was filming just before I left. You don't see the video, I think, till June. It's part of Susanna's project, and it's vintage sewing equipment or utensils, you know, your sewing machine, your pins and needles. And I pulled out my vintage cloth tape measure I have, and I couldn't bring myself to cut a piece off. And then what do I find? This. So that is going to be added to that project because it really suits. Then, because he had a heap of Japanese fabrics, he had this little thimble needle pusher thing, and I have wanted one of these so long. It helps you push your needle through. So when you're doing your boro or your camphor style stitching, you pop it on the finger that the needle pushes through. That's my understanding of it. So it protects that finger that does all the pushing of the needle through the work that you're doing. So super excited that I got one of those. I'm also after a leather thimble. Now I'm just going to pop that in the little bin beside my desk here. And when I got to the next shop, so that is all Stitchbird, if you're interested in any of the, but I did buy them out of this, so don't ask them for that. But their Sue Spargo threads are there. Now, then I walked down the footpath and I came across the Busy Bee quilt shop. So that's their details there. Now, I did have a business card, but I don't know what happened to it. It's been mislaid. So when I take a photo at the end of these guys' details, it will be of that. And I will link the two businesses in the description below so that you can see, you know, everything I got. So she had a basket of just threads that were $3, excess to requirement threads. And there were 2 skeins of the green and then some other different colors, and I spotted them and thought, well, I'm always stitching green, so I can't go too wrong. And then I picked up some more thread. Now, these are also Sue Spargo, but this store had this range plus the thicker thread. So this is number 8, this is number 5 Perle. So I just picked up 3 common colors. For me, can't go wrong with green and a beige. That's a similar color. Bit of a shame, I've only just realized that now, but it doesn't matter because I use a lot of green. Like, we're forever stitching with green. So they were the additional threads I picked up. I figured I'd spend enough money there to go crazy again. And it was so overwhelming. This shop has so many threads. When you see the photos at the end, what I'll do is I will take a picture of that, and then the next few photos will be inside this shop, Stitchbird. Then I'll take a picture of this little bee on this little piece of paper here, and the next few photos will be inside her shop. And this stitching bee, the threads, oh my goodness, unbelievable. Walls and walls. And I found a leather thimble. Now I hope it will help me. It's very large, but I could probably pack it with something in there. I'm hoping that's gonna give my finger a bit more life. So yeah, that's just a clover one. I've seen them online, but once again, when you don't see them regularly, you sort of wonder if it's the right thing for you. So I've got a leather thimble as well. I hope it's going to help. I think it will. It's probably a little loose, but I think it'll be okay. And maybe it will come off. I don't know. I might need to pop something around my finger to just grip it on. I didn't see a medium or a small. It was only the one for sale, and I didn't click at the time that they were actually small, medium and large, it would seem. But it doesn't matter. I think that if I was to wrap something around my finger first and then insert it, it'll be perfectly fine, because, you know, maybe I have large fingers anyway. So they were my purchases. Some threads from Sue Spargo and a few little pieces of fabric. So there you go. Okay, let's have a look at the clock. I think I'd have to be waffling for an hour. Yeah, nearly. All right, guys, I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to keep adding some stitches around my little squirrely friend here. And if that looks like it might work, I might even come back and do a few stitches on the bunny. I just don't want to muddy him up either, because of the way his back is. It's a very muddy print already. So when I put him on, I thought, oh, where would I even stitch? So I did all this down here. Where the squirrel, I can definitely embellish his tail. I can embellish where that darkness is in here, would make his leg pop. I can do a little bit around the top of his head and his whiskers. So I feel like he is more able to be embellished, if you know what I mean. Now I might just have a quick look. I've got a few minutes. There was a hedgehog. Yeah, see this little guy, he might be able to be embellished, but I don't know if I want a hedgehog. Might come up with another idea. Squirrel might be just enough. There's limited space. You know, we can't go crazy with some of our ideas because there's literally limited space. I have thought about doing another one of these because I've got that left from when I did it, and I think I could get another couple wings out of that. So that's still in the woodwork, that may happen. So all right, so the plan is there'll probably be one more video that's related to the cruise, and that will cover off on my adventures of the visit to the thermal springs and the Hungy and the Kiwi plantation. It'll cover off on Auckland, which is a visit to the Hobbit village they used in the movie The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. And then we would be on our 3 days back over the ocean to Brisbane, and in that will be an update of the Sound of Music choir that I've joined. So plenty of adventures afoot. All right, guys, I'm going to leave you in peace. I guarantee you will not be watching this video while I'm on the boat, because I cannot get it uploaded. The first one I filmed was going to be 180 hours to upload the hour-long video, so that was the end of that, using the ship Wi-Fi. And of course, when I got to Wellington, if I was to turn on the Telstra network, it'd probably be $180 to actually upload it. So you will be watching these videos. There'll be 3, I believe, maybe 4 if I get into some mischief that I need to tell you about. You will be watching them when I'm well and truly back in Australia, and yeah, settle back home, and as soon as I hit land, which I think's a Monday, I will I've even got the first one to my mobile phone, so driving from the port back to my house, I can upload it quite quickly and quite reasonably priced too. So I will do that the moment I hit Australia, and then the second, this one, and the third will be the consecutive days, and then I'll be back in my craft room and settled in. I think I do need to travel the countryside and pick up all my puppy dogs, so yeah, there still might be a few patchy days without videos from me as I settle back down into my general routine. All right guys, look after yourselves, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye for now.